All right. Thank you for joining us today. This is a mock interview and probably will be presented on the channel. And I thank you for your time today. Can you start up with a brief introduction to yourself, what you have done, and then we can have follow-up questions.
Okay, myself, I completed my graduation in 2011. I worked in non-IT field from 2011 to 2022. I started working as a DevOps engineer since June 2022 for the past 1 year. Presently, I am working on the DevOps and AWS cloud related work. In DevOps, we are using Git for the source code management, Jenkins for CI/CD, and we are using Docker for containerization and using AWS Cloud EKS and Kubernetes. We are orchestrating the containers. Majorly, we are using AWS platform only for deployments and for automation of our resources for infrastructure. We are using majorly AWS services only. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. What is the latest and current project? Can you tell me about what project have you done? Explain a brief on the project.
Project we are working on for a pharmaceutical client. Name of client. We basis on the requirement, we are converting the monolithic architecture of the client into a microservice based architecture to reduce the many benefits like updation of a particular service, reducing downtime during updation of complete reduce downtime of complete application for any during any update, and also scale for scaling of particular service instead of total all services. We are plan to convert the monolithic architecture of the client to a microservice based architecture. In that project, we are different segregate diverting the different type of services like login service, payment service. We are breaking the single monolith application into different types and building different containers for the same. And we are thereby we are managing to reduce that downtime and updation time.
Okay. And is your monolithic service on-prem?
It's on cloud.
Your monolithic is on cloud as well?
Yes.
Okay. So can you tell me what are the steps that you would take to break down a monolithic service into a microservices?
Okay. First, we have to list out what are the services required, because the monolithic application will have a different coding environment. The entire application will be coded into a single thing. But in case of a containerized application, we have to break that into different parts. For suppose the for home page, we have to maintain different container. And the user, yeah.
Okay. Can you tell me about what do you understand by a stateful and a stateless application?
Yeah, stateless application means for stateful application, difference between stateful and stateless applications. Stateless application means we don't have to maintain the uh, status of that application. Means when we majorly stateless applications are only for read permissions, and the stateful applications will have to change that read and write permissions like that.
Okay. All right. Okay. So you
For
said
database type, yeah.
you use Kubernetes, right?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me about how do containers communicate in Kubernetes?
Using a CNI in network interface, they communicate.
All right. And
Containers use Q proxy, yeah.
so if I am So if I've got a set of pods in a container, if I've got a set of pods in Kubernetes, I need to manage the access that some of the access to few pods is available, but I do want to restrict other pods to have access to that information in the second pod. How would I restrict and enable a communication between the pods?
We in the Kubernetes we have the CNI plugin. Using CNI plugin, we can communicate between the pods.
Okay. Do you know how Kubernetes orchestrates the containers?
Yes. While writing the Kubernetes manifestation files, we define what is the image we require, what is the minimum quantity of pods we require, maximum quantity of pods we require, and we also define the size of that pods, what resources the pod can use. Depending on the we can use scaling policy if the CPU CPU load is increased by more than 80%, like that, we can define in the policy. Thereby, the servers get scale in and scale out.
Okay.
Pods get scale in and scale out.
Right. So in terms of, can you tell me some of the Kubernetes commands that you remember?
Yeah, majorly we work using KubeADM and EKS. We majorly use we first whatever required resource required in Kubernetes. We create a YAML file. Suppose we need a pod or we need some stateful set. We create a YAML manifestation file in the server, and we can implement that using kubectl tool. Using kubectl tool, using kubectl apply command, we can run whatever file we want to execute.
All right.
For
So,
also,
all right, got that. Now, I believe you must have used load balancers at some point, right?
yes,
Can you tell me the difference between an application load balancer and a network load balancer?
yeah. Network load balancer is majorly it works on UDP protocols, and application load balancer majorly works on TCP/IP protocol. And that was the main difference between application load balancer and network load balancer.
When would you use application load balancer and when would you use network load balancers?
Application load balancer we use it was a network layer 7 type of load balancer. Application load balancer is, and network load balancer is a layer 4 type of load balancer. When we want to not clear about that exactly.
Comment. Have you heard of sticky session load balancing?
Sticky session, yes.
Can you tell me what a sticky session is?
Sticky session means there will be a catchy for particular time of particular time. The load balancer we will connect only for the when the client is asking requesting the server. The particular load balancer will be only connected.
Okay, all right. Now, you must have used logs, right? So
Yes.
for your application logs, can you tell me what are the essential criterias for a log, and what are the attributes that it should have? The basic attributes of a good log.
For Kubernetes, for AWS.
For any log that you have, for any log file. When, let's say when you're writing up an application and you're defining up what should go inside a log file. So what are the things that you would put inside a log file of an application? So that it's easily, when you're debugging the log, it's easy to debug. It contains all the essential properties of the debugging. So what are the basic fundamental attributes that must be there in a log?
Monitoring the resource.
Okay, all right. Let me just start off with the log must contain at least a date or timestamp, right? So when you're debugging, you know
Yeah,
what
yeah.
timestamp. What are the other things that it must contain?
User, who is the user fetching the using that particular application or task?
Yeah.
User we have to compulsory in use. Apart from that,
And you said you're using microservices, so that means there might be a single transaction which is flowing through multiple microservices. So if there's a
yes.
failure in, let's say, microservice A is calling B and B is calling C, if there's a failure in a log that you find in the application C, how do you trace it back to application A? What exactly is the log that you will see that you want to try to map to application A? Like a transaction ID or something that you would like to have in there?
Yeah, ID we have to
All right. So have you said that you have used Linux as well, right? Unix.
yes, Linux.
So do you understand what is a private and a public key?
Yes. In
Okay.
order to have a passwordless communication, we use that for a.
All right. So can you tell me how would you achieve a passwordless communication between the two
In
boxes?
Linux servers, we can achieve that using SSH protocol. In SSH, we generate public and private keys in the particular server. Whenever we want to connect with the guest server or with the other server, we need to copy that private key, public key to the remote server. Then only we can access the remote server using without using the password.
All right. And
First, we have to establish SSH connection with that remote server using the public key.
right. And
Yes.
where would you put the public key? Where in the other terminal?
Public key will be in the list of authorized users file.
Price keys. Yeah.
Authorized keys.
All right. Now, so have you used AWS? You have.
Yes.
So, what do you understand by serverless in AWS?
Serverless. Yeah.
And which
We are using Lambda function for serverless thing. Actually, for every task, we need some server for the computation or for anything. AWS introduces Lambda function in order to have a serverless thing. But we in the normal case, we have to create server. We have to build Linux or Windows servers by ourselves, and we have to use. In the case of AWS Lambda, we just write what is the function, what is the logic we want. Example for like while loop or for loop, or some fun minimal task like we want to convert our uh, 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 convert your instance from GPT to GP3. For the tasks for similar tasks like the automation tasks, we use this AWS Lambda. This AWS Lambda service will only run till the we run that function.
okay.
In the normal case, the server case, we have to start a server, we have to stop server by ourselves. In the case of Lambda function, when we run the function, it starts the server automatically in the backend, and after the function completed, the servers will be stopped automatically in the backend.
Do you
We
get to
don't need to
do you
build
get
server and
do you get to see the servers in Lambda?
no, we just write whatever function we want for that. We
Okay.
can select what type of instance we want, like size of instance.
Okay. So have you used SNS and SQS?
Yes, in ASG, I have used an SNS. When there is any upgrade, scale out of servers or any server terminates, I will get notification through SNS service to my email.
And can you tell me what SQS is?
SQS is a simple queuing service. We use it majorly to manage big data. We just like just like CSAD. Sorry, just like I have not used SQS much.
That's all right.
Just for the basic.
So if I've got multiple VPCs, what
Yes.
what AWS service would I use to connect all the VPCs together?
Using VPC peering, we can connect multiple VPCs. And if we have more VPCs, we can use the transit gateway for peering.
Okay. And do you have any understanding of what is the landing zone in AWS?
Landing zone, I don't exactly.
What is control tower?
Control tower I heard, but I have not used it till now.
That's all right. Now, in order to make your cloud secure, what are the AWS security mechanisms would you use for your application?
We can use AWS IAM services, which restricts the actions on the resources by any user or by any service. And apart from that, we have SCP policies, so service control policies. Using that, we can restrict the actions on the resources by any person. Apart from that, we have a AWS config is there, config service is there, and we have a AWS guard duty. Using these services, if there is any, it will make note of everything, every action which is been done, who has done the action, what action is done, everything will be logged in.
All right. And can you tell me the difference between security group and NACLs?
Security group is for instance level, and NACL is for a subnet level. And security group is a stateful type of thing, and NACL is a stateless. If we define some role in the inbound, it will automatically apply for the outbound also in case of security group. In NACL case, it is not like that. We have to define, and in NACL there will be a hierarchy. Whatever priority you given is executed is taken preference first.
Okay. Now, what's the difference between encryption, encoding, and hashing?
Encryption in AWS, we have a different type of encryption. Server-side encryption is there. KMS encryption is there. In KMS encryption, we encrypt the data using a key, KMS key. If we can decrypt the data only using KMS key. If we have one KMS key only. In the normal hashing and like as we do in Linux servers, we encode the data using a base 64. It is regular hashing. In case of that encryption, we use a different type of like KMS encryption. We use different service like that.
What is an encoding?
Sorry.
What do you understand by encoding?
Encoding encoding also using some algorithm to encode the data to like base 64. Using that any algorithm, we encode the data like we do in Linux servers. Using base 64, we encode and we decode again in using base 64.
Okay. the difference between now I'm going towards database now. So do you know the difference between a SQL and a NoSQL and the data warehouse?
Yeah, I have not much knowledge in database.
Okay. All right. Now, have you worked on CI/CD? You know,
Yeah, we implemented using Jenkins CI/CD.
what are the different components of a CI/CD? So, can you tell me all the different tech stacks associated to all the different components that you have used?
Yeah, CI/CD consists of integration and deployment. In integration, we take code from source. In our case, we are using a GitHub and GitLab for the integration. And for deployment, we can deploy as on our servers as per our requirement.
Okay.
In CI/CD, first we mention the. Can I pause for a minute?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry for the disturbance.
You're all right now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We are discussing about CI/CD, right? We will in GitHub we will configure the source repository. Whenever there is change in source code, and the Jenkins will trigger and integrate the changes into the our repository. In this, we use different strategies using branching strategies. We use a feature branch. We use a main and deployment branch. We are using different branches for this CI/CD. Whenever there is any change in the code, the developer will execute the change in development branch. Once it is get reviewed, it will be automatically pushed to the next branch. In the pipeline, we will mention that sequence from where it have to take the code. Once the code is taken, it will be tested. Once code is being tested, test has been successful. It will get deployed on the configure servers.
Okay. All right. And have you used any sort of security tools in your CI pipeline?
Security tools.
Have you used any SonarQube or check marks or?
For code check, we are using SonarQube.
Okay. All right. All right, Venkatesh. So I think I'm towards the end of the interview now, and thank you for your time. So as this was a mock interview, so I'll probably be just giving you a feedback after this recording is done, and much appreciate your time. So,
I will also get that recording, right?
yes.
Yeah,
All right.
okay.